Gospel musician Travis Greene and his spouse Jackie have been the epitome of family, love, and faith for many years. But few people have ever heard the story that lies beneath the worship songs and happy pictures. When Jackie eventually revealed the truth about what actually occurred in their house, it surprised even their closest friends. From devastating losses to times that almost ended their marriage, she disclosed more than just sentimental information. It alters everything you believed to be true about the Greenes and is incredibly human. Majority of people consider Travis Greene and his wife Jackie to be one of the most resilient couples in gospel music, representing unwavering faith and purpose. With their award shows, ministry moments, and happy family posts that motivate millions, their public image is impeccable. What transpires behind closed doors, however, frequently paints a different picture, as is the case with many famous couples. The truth about the Greenes' secret family hardships, heartbreaking moments, silent battles, and faith that was put to the test in ways few could ever conceive will be revealed in this video. The gospel community has been rocked by Jackie Greene's recent revelations, not just because of what she said, but also because of how candidly she delivered it. You won't believe the path this couple has taken, from public scrutiny to a tragic loss, and how their faith has been both their biggest obstacle and their strength. This isn't rumors. Every believer and every marriage may learn from this tale of love, suffering, and redemption. We're going to break it down step by step, so stay tuned. You'll learn about the catastrophe that altered everything, the public pressure that nearly caused them to split up, and the shocking reality of how they completely rebuilt their marriage and life. And believe me, you will see Travis and Jackie in a whole different light at the end of this video. Travis and Jackie Greene appear to have it all from the outside. A flourishing ministry, several gospel tunes at the top of the charts, and a movie-like love story. Not all of Travis's songs, such as Made Away and Intentional, were anthems. Millions of people found resonance in these statements of faith. People witnessed the success, the blessings, and the wonders. Few, however, witnessed the private hardships, the tears, and the restless nights that would put their marriage and faith to the test. Most people thought Travis was merely preaching when he frequently discussed faith through difficulties on stage. They were unaware, however, that each testimony and each song was the result of intense personal suffering. In an emotional interview, Jackie once disclosed that they experienced unfathomable tragedy, including the loss of a child, prior to their ministry really taking off. Both of them were changed by the pain in ways that the public would never see. She talked softly and shakily, as she described how that season made her doubt not only her marriage, but also her life's purpose. She acknowledged, "I wasn't sure if I could trust God again. Even though we believed and prayed, we were still defeated. And you change when you lose like that." That suffering became the cornerstone of Travis's devotion. There was sorrow behind every sermon and every performance. However, he and Jackie made the decision to face their beliefs rather than run away from it. Even if their faith seemed shaky, the majority of people are unaware that their ascent to stardom wasn't peaceful. As their music was being praised by audiences, Jackie was struggling with spiritual tiredness and sadness. She later referred to the strain to look strong in the Lord while quietly breaking on the inside as a silent storm. She once said that members of the church community frequently forget that gospel performers, pastors, and worship leaders are also people. We bleed like everyone else, yet they expect us to be flawless, she remarked. At that point, their story transcends the realm of celebrity testimonies. It is the story of two people who, despite the stage lights going off and the cameras being turned off, had to learn to love and trust God once more. This was just the beginning, though, as what followed would put their marriage, ministry, and message to the ultimate test. Travis and Jackie made a decision following their defeat to continue serving, to continue being present, and to continue having faith that God would utilize their suffering for good. That choice appeared honorable at first glance. However, in private, it caused a silent rift between them that neither of them wished to acknowledge. Like any other public forum, the gospel industry has high standards for excellence. Travis was supposed to be powerful, gregarious, and motivating. Jackie was supposed to keep her composure while smiling next to him, even though her own heart was shattering. While Travis was traveling, preaching, and performing, she remained in the background running the household, raising their kids, and bearing the emotional burden of a bereaved family. Jackie made one of her most candid admissions, saying that there were times when she sat by herself and sobbed silently while she browsed social media and saw people praising their ministry and marriage. She claimed that when people posted about how flawless we looked, all I could think about was how hollow I felt on the inside. She still had feelings for her husband, not at all. She had a profound love for him, but in a world that only recognized her as Travis Greene's wife, she started to feel invisible. He was the focus of every interview, church function, and meet and greet. While Travis was engaged in a different kind of conflict, she began to ask herself, where do I fit in this story? He was overburdened with duties, including supporting his family, overseeing a burgeoning church, and living up to the expectations of followers who thought he knew the solutions to all spiritual issues. He was less able to emotionally support his own family the more people expected of him. Silently, the strain increased. They avoided public arguments. Their silence spoke more than any cryptic statements they might have posted online. As Jackie once remarked, ministry was our connection, not intimacy. We became strangers living under the same roof. Jackie thought about removing herself from the spotlight entirely at one point. She thought the stage was taking her mind off of her recovery, but each time she attempted to pull away, she was reminded that her husband needed her at his side. So she stayed, wounded but faithful. When Travis's schedule grew unmanageable, their marriage broke down. Their private world started to be undermined by long nights out, constant travel, and public demands. As everyone applauded her husband's faith, Jackie started to feel like the one keeping things together. Then, things started to go apart. Jackie said that she became resentful because she felt invisible in Travis's journey, not because of his achievement. She clarified, "It wasn't that he didn't love me." This confession resonated with many women in ministry who could relate to her statement. It was that we were both fighting our own battles without realizing we were supposed to be fighting together. The reality is that behind many strong religious men, there is frequently a woman engaged in unseen conflict that goes unspoken. The tale doesn't stop there though, because something unexpected happened when they were at their lowest. Something that made Travis and Jackie confront their relationship with God as well as their marriage. Their perspectives on forgiveness, family, and faith would all be drastically altered by what transpired next. Every relationship experiences a turning point when their faith, love, and strength all appear to run out. That moment arrived subtly for Travis and Jackie, not with yelling or treachery, but with fatigue. The type of fatigue that permeates your spirit. There was a silence between us that felt louder than words, Jackie said. She would get up, go about her daily business, look after the children, and get ready for the next day. However, she sensed that she and her husband were becoming more and more separated. While Travis was traveling, performing, preaching, counseling, and persuading himself that everything at home was all right, he was fully immersed in his calling. However, they both sensed something was wrong on the inside. Travis returned home one evening, after yet another exhausting week of travel, to discover Jackie sitting in the living room, tears running down her cheeks, and a Bible on her lap. She wasn't upset. Not that she was yelling, she was simply worn out. She whispered to him, "I feel like I'm losing us. Furthermore, I'm no longer even sure how to pray about it." Something in Travis was broken in that moment. He had been preaching about trusting God through suffering for years. He now understood, however, that he had been so preoccupied with serving others that he had failed to see the need for ministry in his own home. The months that followed turned out to be some of the most difficult in their marriage. Jackie started to doubt everything. Her identity, her role as a wife, and even her religious beliefs. According to her, when the God you serve feels silent, it's the loneliest place you can ever be. Travis attempted to solve problems the way most men do, offering spiritual remedies and fast fixes. However, he couldn't use a sermon to fix this issue. It took time, vulnerability, and honesty to heal this wound. What Travis subsequently referred to as his darkest night was the pivotal moment. He was surrounded by success and applause when he returned to his hotel room after performing at a significant gospel event, exhausted. When everything seemed to be wonderful, I recall sitting there and asking God, Why am I feeling this way? He came to the realization that he had neglected to just be with God because he had been so preoccupied with doing things for him. His marriage was gradually slipping into the background as his ministry had taken on a life of its own. Jackie, meantime, was finding her voice again. She began praying, keeping a journal, and re-establishing her private relationship with God. She started to recover by finally letting herself be weak, not by attempting to be strong. She began to confront the reality and quit acting as though nothing was wrong. And when she did, things started to change. Jackie began concentrating on her own emotional, spiritual, and mental healing, rather than waiting for Travis to mend a marriage. That humility, that submission, was what started to gradually reunite them. She once remarked, "I stopped asking God to change my husband and started asking him to change me." Observing his wife's transformation, Travis started to distance himself from the commotion. He began to decline some invitations. He started making time at home a priority and creating room for discussions that had been neglected for years. And they resumed their conversation during those silent times, away from the lights and the stage, genuinely discussing their suffering, anxieties, setbacks, and even bitterness. It wasn't simple. There were miscommunications, tears, and times when it felt easier to go than to start over. However, they continued to choose grace. Jackie once said something to him that stuck. "You cannot save the world at the expense of your home." Everything changed after hearing those words. From that point on, Travis realized that the music and lectures weren't the best ways to serve others. It was in his love for his family and wife. However, their tale was far from done, because a new problem arose even after the healing process had started. One that once again put their faith to the test, this time in the public view. The last thing a couple wants is to be subjected to public pressure that reopens past wounds when they are starting to mend privately. Their restoration moment coincided with the explosion of Travis and Jackie Greene's fame. Travis was getting awards, working with other prominent singers, and being asked to lead big gospel tours. At the same time, Forward City, their church, was expanding more quickly than they could control. On the surface, it appeared like God was rewarding their loyalty. However, the Greenes were treading on thin ice behind the scenes. Jackie had recently started to regain her footing and reclaim her purpose outside of being the wife of a performer or a pastor. She began giving speeches at gatherings, mentoring young ladies, and posting little excerpts of her narrative online. Those posts got viral very fast. People admired her openness and honesty. However, criticism accompanied prominence. She was too honest about her marriage and feelings. According to several churchgoers who questioned her candor, she was accused by others of disclosing personal difficulties. Jackie, however, wasn't attempting to attract attention. She was working to provide women who felt invisible their freedom. She suggested that people may have become too accustomed to acting if speaking the truth makes them uneasy. Travis, meantime, was conflicted. He realized that his wife's voice was a vital component of her recovery, but he also wanted to shield her from the online criticism. And there were times when he struggled with insecurity even though he outwardly supported her. The tension started to rise once more behind closed doors. The demands of the ministry were incessant. Churchgoers and supporters had consistent expectations. And what used to be their biggest ally, the internet, turned into their worst enemy. They were pushed to their breaking point in one particular instance. A video of Travis making an emotional declaration about family during a live-streamed church service went popular for all the wrong reasons. Some misrepresented what he said, making it a contentious issue. The couple was suddenly quite popular on social media for something very personal, not because of their music or their religious beliefs. Later on, Jackie acknowledged that this time felt familiar. Another wave crashed in just as we thought the storm was over. This time, however, they handled it differently rather than breaking. Instead of backing down or retaliating online, the Greenes chose to face the issue head-on. They spoke directly to their congregation. "We are not perfect. We are people who love God and are still learning to love each other every day," Jackie said candidly. Travis followed up on her message by doing what he does best, which is to turn suffering into worship. "And if can't handle our humanity, then maybe you've made idols out of us." Thousands of people watched online, and that level of honesty struck a chord with them. For the first time, many saw what true faith under fire looked like. Not polished, not filtered, but raw and real. But what really made this season transformative was how they started to live differently afterward, setting boundaries and learning to say no. He wrote a song that would later become one of his most emotional pieces, one that spoke directly to the struggle of balancing faith and real life, and listeners described it as a song that felt like therapy. They took a break from ministry to focus on each other and their kids, and Travis started talking candidly about mental health, openness, and what it means to trust God in the face of imperfection. Jackie also started using her platform to encourage women in the Christian community to stop acting as though faith makes suffering go away. Their greatest act of redemption, however, was not in the interviews or social media posts, but rather in the quiet, unseen moments. The couple's decision to be open and honest caused a ripple effect, with people who had previously admired them starting to see them as human, which ironically increased their level of respect. Jackie once remarked, "The enemy tried to make us believe that our story was over." Those were the moments when they prayed together once more, laughed over coffee in the mornings, and performed modest acts of forgiveness that restored what celebrity and pressure had previously destroyed. However, God reminded us that beauty may still be created from damaged parts. Their narrative shifted from surviving celebrity to redefining faith. They understood that perfection is not the goal of ministry. In the midst of chaos, it's about being authentic. But there was one last obstacle to overcome even after they had regained their calm, something very intimate that would put everything they had learned to the ultimate test. Because another test arrived right after they believed the storm had passed. One that was even more personal. Life put Travis and Jackie to the test once more, just when they believed they had at last found serenity, via the one thing that reaches the core of every parent's heart: family, rather than via notoriety or criticism. Their ministry had been revitalized, their marriage restored, and their faith rekindled. However, their next conflict would lead them into their home, which was the only location a camera could enter. Later on, Jackie disclosed that one of their kids had experienced a severe health scare. They initially kept it a secret from the public. They had no desire for pity. They desired seclusion. However, that season turned into yet another pivotal point. It served as a reminder of how fleeting life is, and how easily faith may be put to the test when fear enters the picture. Travis subsequently revealed in a moving sermon that there were times when he prayed through tears while sitting next to his child's bed, pleading with God for strength. When you have to sing about miracles while you're waiting for one in your own home, it's different, he remarked. However, Jackie found herself battling old worries once more, the same ones she had experienced years before when they lost their first child. She said that she nearly succumbed to terror. She revealed, "I began to believe the lie that perhaps this was happening because I wasn't strong enough or faithful enough. However, God demonstrated to me that His strength is independent of mine." More deliberately than ever before, the pair started praying together. Social media updates and ministry planning no longer occupied their evenings. They were replete with hushed prayers, subdued worship music, and heartfelt surrender moments. And gradually, things started to shift. The health of their child started to become better. Their union became more solid than it had ever been. And instead of destroying them, the very thing that had the potential to do so served as a catalyst for greater solidarity. They learned something from this last storm that no platform, no medal, and no viral moment could ever impart. The absence of suffering is not peace. It is God's presence in the midst of it. Don't chase platforms and forget your purpose. Don't build ministries and lose your marriage. Because at the end of it all, God won't ask how many followers you had. He'll ask how you loved the people He gave you. Travis started talking more candidly about the value of family. And Jackie, who was by his side, became a voice for religious women who have felt invisible, unheard, or undervalued. "Our story isn't perfect," she said, "but it's proof that God still restores what the world calls broken." Their story became a testament that spoke to people of all ages. It served as a reminder that every public triumph is the result of a private struggle. Additionally, a cry for assistance that God transforms into healing frequently lies beneath every worship hymn. The Greenes are a living example of how love can endure loss, how faith can endure adversity, and how forgiveness is frequently the most unexpected miracle. They are not a couple who have never experienced suffering. Jackie's comments continue to reverberate for individuals who have experienced grief, betrayal, or tiredness as their ministry continues to reach people worldwide. To be loved by God, you don't need to be flawless, you simply must be truthful. And perhaps the most potent reality of all is that authenticity is what cures the soul in a society that is fixated on appearances.